Hi, Lubna.
Hi, Hawa.
How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Good, good. We're back in our respective homes,
True.
which I'm very jealous that for you it's Puerto Rico because it
Yes.
snowed actually last week. It didn't snow when you were in Long Island, I don't think. No, it
No.
did. It was just
But snow
freezing.
is beautiful. I
Yeah, it
mean,
is.
if it's
I love
not
snow.
dirty, messy snow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's always nice. It was beautiful, and it's always great when it happens during the holiday season. So, and my
Oh,
birthday
yeah, so
season.
festive.
So I
Of
can't
course.
complain. So today I'm really excited to talk about this topic with you. I mean, I'm always excited to talk with you, but I think this is something that I think it's relevant for all of us and just a part of being a human being, which is what
Yeah.
is our purpose? What is
Yeah.
purpose? Why are we here? For some people, how do we get out? So for some people, right. And so
Yeah.
I really am excited to talk about this topic because I think that's been sort of an ongoing theme for me, even if I didn't realize, and it became increasingly louder the last couple of years. And I think that's certainly the case for you. So I think to start off, one thing I want to ask for both of us is sort of how do we even like define purpose? What does that mean? It's such a broad term, but like
Right.
I said, it's a term, it's something that we are all universally always thinking about, I believe. So, yeah, I guess what is your definition of purpose?
Yeah, I thought
How do you
about
define
it
it?
when we chose this topic and like the kind of the intuitive, more mainstream things came to mind immediately, like job, work, family, da 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 da. And then I dug deeper. I mean, I read a little bit different articles. It's just like try to dig deeper into what it could be even for me.
Yeah.
Forget about the world. And I thought I loved one thing I came across, which is relationship to life.
Mm.
Um, and that's purpose. How that relationship is shaped. And there are, of course, subcategories to that. What is life? To some people, they can summarize it as, profession, work, family, and maybe taking care of the body, the self. And that way, some people might have different categorization. For me, I definitely thought about it in terms of profession, fulfillment, in terms of service towards others. Um,
Yeah.
and then the body, which is the physical, whether, eating better, being healthy, exercising, that kind of category. Family, relationships. I think the broader thing is relationships and there. And then finally, spirituality. So maybe four categories for me, but to go back to the idea that it's our reaction to life.
Yeah.
And I thought about it also in terms of what is life is asking of me right now? What is needed? Because also as I was thinking about the topic, I thought of the usual term that is used very widely, discover your purpose, find your purpose. The
Yeah.
language around it assumes that it's lost. It's somewhere and we are to uncover it, reveal it, find it. I'm not sure this is right. At least in my experience in my life, it seems like it's slowly revealing itself. It's a gradual, bit by bit, through my actions, my responses to life, I'm getting more hints and cues where I need to go. And specifically, it's more of an orientation.
Hmm.
This is an orientation for me. That's the direction I need to be in, as opposed to this is the end goal. This is what I need to achieve. This
Yeah.
is the result. I think the orientation speaks to me better, um, because I don't like to be so caught up with a goal or the target. I truly believe that this is not my responsibility in life. I cannot control it. I can work towards it. So I need to be in the right direction, the right orientation. And that alone is very difficult. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's simple. So those are the thoughts that came to me.
Hmm.
How about you?
So I feel for me lately, as I've gone down the spiritual path, that purpose for me, I relate to in the sense that I don't think purpose is just, it's not something that is only for you. I feel that whatever your purpose is has to, in some way or another, help humanity. And that doesn't mean like
Mm.
humanity, everybody, but I just, whether you're a teacher, for example, a doctor, like, but sometimes people go into those professions and that's not their purpose, right? That's something that they've been told that they have to do, or that's something that they think that they would be good at, but that isn't necessarily their purpose. But I've increasingly believed, and my definition of purpose essentially is what are you supposed to be doing in this incarnation in your life? What are you supposed to be doing when you're on planet Earth that helps humanity, right? In small or big ways. It doesn't have to be, again, all of human civilization, but and sometimes that purpose can be a solitary pursuit. It is something you're doing, but it ultimately is helping others, whether it's in the life you're living right now or when you're long gone.
Mm.
So ultimately, purpose for me is connected to, so in some ways it's similar to you in the sense that it is about relating to others, but I also think it's like, how are we helping others? And and with it not being connected to some financial gain, and if the money comes with it, that's great. But the primary thing cannot be how do I make money and it happens to help everyone around me. It cannot be
Mm.
too materialistically driven, your purpose.
Why?
Like,
Why it
no, I
cannot be?
think you can make money, but I'm saying whatever you do and whatever you're doing, whatever your purpose is, if it's helping people make more money, fine. That is purpose. But if it's like I just want to make money for money's sake,
Why it cannot be that? Like it cannot be when you say it cannot be that, why? Are you thinking of
for me,
like
I just think
that
it's not,
person's
it's just so materialistically driven. If it's solely for the material. Like I think for me, purpose has to be rooted. Your purpose has to be helping others in some way or another, in addition to helping yourself. It cannot just be my purpose is to make a lot of money. And the reason I think that if whatever you're doing, if you come from it genuinely from your heart, if you generally are like, I want to go into banking because I want to be able to help people become more financially independent and secure in their lives. I do believe that that is purposeful.
Mm.
But if you're coming from it just to be like, I will do whatever I want, whatever I can to make money for the sake of money, I don't know if that is really why you came to Earth. I don't know if your mission on planet Earth is to make money from, money only. I think the if you want to get rich, I think that can be purposeful, I guess, but it's how you get the riches and what you do with it to help others.
Yeah, I see your point. I'm hearing service
Yeah, some
and
sort of service. Yes,
yeah,
exactly. I
and
think purpose
definitely
is service or yeah, exact. That's a, sorry. Yes. You're right. It is service for me.
because I was thinking about that like from the angle of responsibility when I said, what is life asking of me right now?
Hmm.
And that was very difficult for me to answer. I'm like, I don't know what is it asking of me right now? Like, where am I needed? Aside from the obvious stuff, like I'm a mother, there's a child, yeah, he needs me. But there are like billions of mothers out there. Is all of us, they're our purpose just to be a mother? I guess that's one angle, which is the relationship, the subcategory of purpose. But then going back to responsibility and service, towards whom? Where where am I useful? Um, and that when I started thinking in that way, I was like, maybe I'm not putting myself out there enough in spaces where my skill set, my training, my experiences in life could be useful to someone. And of course, I realized afterwards, I've been recently quite self-absorbed and self-obsessed. I mean, one in my own
You,
sense.
Lubna?
But no, here is why.
Lubna
Like,
Kayyali? I don't know about, please tell me more because that is, I would never think of you in that
no,
capacity.
but no, I'm thinking about it. I think it comes with like, the hibernation period I was in when I had just
Mhm.
delivered, you're not part of the outer society.
Yeah.
So you're kind of thinking about yourself, the baby yourself. Like it's a very micro experience of things. So I think that's where I realized because when I'm thinking about my career in that context, I'm like, my career, getting back into that. But I never thought about it in terms of where am I useful? How can I help others? And to your point, yes, money comes, compensation. Sure, that's we need all to survive and live. That's how the game has been structured. But where am I gonna be needed answers the question for me of flow. Where
Yeah.
am I gonna be able to give without that feeling of being drained, which happens to all of us, right? When you're not doing the thing you're supposed to do, you feel drained
Hmm.
emotionally, physically. And to me, that's been always a signal that this is not my path. That's
Yeah.
not my orientation. I need to pivot. So, yeah, I hear you. Service equal to responsibility, equal to meaning. We derive meaning when we have responsibility because it's no longer, we're not the focus of the activity anymore.
Right.
Someone
Right.
else. And I think that's a healthy exercise for our egocentric
Yeah.
beings. That's the way we're designed.
Hmm.
Um, so I think as I'm thinking about all these questions and our conversations, helping me to figure out really where I need to give my attention more.
Yeah.
Especially I'm thinking like using my professional skills. Let me be
Mhm.
specific, I guess, because I started talking about the body, the relationships, spirituality, and then career and profession. I'm
Mhm.
talking now about career and profession. The
Yeah.
rest, I think it's more, yeah, it's a different kind of conversation, but I'm thinking more of in terms of that. Um, who can I help? What can I help? Um, so it's an open question for me. I want, have you thought about it in these terms?
From a
Where
career
are you needed?
professional, yeah, from a career professional perspective, I think, and particularly living in this hyper capitalist, materialist world that we live in, it becomes increasingly difficult to even, I don't even think people, that's why I was wanting to talk more about like the sheer definition of it, because I think people are so disconnected from their inner worlds and their inner self, right? In a way that, Lubna, for instance, the way that you're even talking about purpose to me is not something I've ever really encountered with a lot of Americans that I've encountered.
Really?
That and to say that, yeah, just thinking deeply about how to be in service for I don't have much of a circle. My circle is very small. And so I mean, I have my own little world and my own little like thing, but
Mm.
I think when people talk about career, I think people are so disconnected from their souls, basically, right? So let's talk about it even like from a spiritual perspective, and then I'll connect it to the career professional aspect of it. But I think because in America, this is like woo, right? The idea of like,
Yeah,
oh,
of
the soul, the
course.
spirit, and all that type of stuff. But there is always, like you said, I loved what you said about the flow and like listening to your inner voice telling you, okay, I'm in this career, I'm in this job that pays me X dollars a month or a year. Everything is fine, but there's this inner voice, right, telling you,
Yeah,
I don't want to do this anymore. We all know these types of people who have
yeah,
like high paying professional jobs. Everything is very glitzy on the outside, but they are not content. And they might think it's a mental thing, an ailment, or whatever. And I would argue it's a spiritual ailment, personally, right? That contributes to these mental health issues. And I've been one of those people. I've had, corporate career. I've had these corporate jobs and, respectfully, listen, I'm doing everything I can to like not ever go back to that life, but like and I think I'm self-sabotaging deliberately, which I'm fine with. But I never was content with any job. I was always wanting more, or not wanting more financially. I don't want to say more from a financial perspective, but it always felt like I'm not happy, right? I worked, and I'm speaking of the work itself. I'm not talking about the people that I met. I met
yeah,
wonderful people. I had wonderful opportunities. This is no, like, it has nothing to do with that, right? The environment was very well suited for me, the way that I was treated, the money that I got, no complaints, but there was something inside of me, right, that was like not content. I was not settled in this. I was spending
mm,
hours and I guess you're right. I should take it back, but you're right. Many people are talking about this sort of like, what is this feeling inside of us? This criticism of this office culture that we live in that a lot of people aren't particularly happy in, right? So I can only speak for that, like the professional managerial class, as they call it, who many feel are not as content as they would like to be within these spaces, right? And also, interestingly enough, we're in this world where all of these jobs are going away. So anyway, even before any of these layoffs and all that stuff, like I was always feeling very discontent within myself. And and I think we did an episode a couple of months ago where I had mentioned certain countries are reducing the number of days people at work so they can pursue their personal interests. And I think that's very connected to your purpose. Universal basic income, UBI, I think that was tested in Finland for a bit. So people just have a very low basic income that they get each month to be able to pursue their interests, right? To have a happier, more content society because people are being very alienated, right? By their labor and all of these types of things. And so, and I do feel now I am more purposeful because I am pursuing my interests or I am doing things that I am enjoying internally. I don't feel that disconnect, right? And I'm making nothing. I have nothing. Like, but yet I'm more content because I feel
Yeah.
like the flow, as you said, I'm kind of in the flow of it. Of just
Mm.
feeling like, let me see what comes my way, right? And it's okay. And I think to your point, sometimes you're right. People are like, I don't know what my purpose is, but then that maybe requires you to get out of your comfort zone to sort of interact and do and pursue things. So I think that's even what it is about UBI. Like it isn't so you can become like strictly like a circus trainer, even though if that's your purpose and people are feel joy from your entertainment, why not? But sometimes it enables you to sort of interact with people, put yourself out there to see what opportunities may come your way that do fulfill something inside of you internally that is not something you can speak to per se.
Yeah.
So, because I just
No.
I think a lot of people are in careers and professions that are very glitzy on the outside and it is killing them and it is not their purpose. There are people who are doctors, right? I've come across these stories online where there are people like, I was a surgeon and I no longer practice medicine. I don't want to do this. I was told, I was pressured, the conditioning, I was told in my culture and my society that that is what I was supposed to do and I hate it, right?
Yeah.
Because and
Yeah.
so that's it. There's all this noise in this world that we live in that sort of push down the ability to pursue your purpose. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it increasingly when it comes to like career and profession.
Yeah, I agree totally. Like the conditioning, the pressuring down, the performative aspect of it is quite big.
Yeah.
And then the other now, I guess, phenomenon in which social media helps to kind of amplify, which is purpose is becoming more of a branding thing.
Yeah.
Um, so I also don't think it's healthy in the long term. It's good for, you know, it's up to people, obviously, to choose for themselves, but I'm just thinking from a spiritual point of view, grounding point of view, um, when it's something is trendy and it's a fad, it's doesn't necessarily signal to me longevity. So this whole like amplifying the branding aspect, the curated aspect of the purpose in life, that's also I think a dangerous route to go down. And you mentioned a couple of very good points about, I think job is not equal to purpose. Identity is not equal to purpose. Um, yeah, I think there's something deeper about, and you started the episode saying that. Why did you come to this world?
Yeah.
The, the spiritual dimension answers or put us at least on the right track. Why are we here? So that I think that helps me, someone with my inclination, my kind of personality and interest, that direction helps me um, carve out better and narrow down better the answer to that question. Why am I here? I guess that's the umbrella kind of question. And then the other points I think that are very good that you raised, something about like you said, it's your interests and the interests because what you're doing now interests you, there's a flow.
Yeah.
Um, and I also thought about it in terms of like passion versus purpose. Passions, they don't necessarily endure, they fluctuate,
Hmm.
right? Like hobbies, things like that. But to me, a signal that this is a purpose is more the endurance of it.
Mm.
Uh, when the flow is more grounded, there's ease. I'm not saying it's not difficult. Sometimes it's hard what you're doing. Um, and I'm thinking specifically like law, because I'm thinking now moving more in the direction and it keeps on coming up. I don't know why, children and children rights and family law. And that was never on the books for me. I'm not trained that way. But recently, I want to say the past year and a half, that has been a theme in my head at least. That's something I would love to explore. So there is that if I go down that route, that's very difficult to do. Family law is extremely emotionally
Oh,
challenging.
emotionally, yeah, yeah.
Oh, 100%. Child abuse cases, the list goes on about like what you can see in that world. families separating, it's a mess.
Yeah.
So it's not something I'm, really excited about or feeling that it's going to be easy. It's hard work. But there's almost a calling there. I don't know how. I'm still uncovering this, like I'm still working on it. But just to say that I don't think it's easy. It could be hard. It's not a passion or a hobby type of thing, right? That fluctuates, comes and goes.
Mm.
And the last point, you said something about, I'm paraphrasing, but you said something about like there is not knowing or like maybe you didn't use that word, but silence. Sometimes there's confusion or silence or a pause. We take a pause. And I started thinking about the seasonality of purpose, that it's okay if it's not revealed or you know it from the very beginning. I think there's a pressure to
Yeah.
know your purpose really early in life.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, like, and
But
that's
no, but not to know, but I feel like it's never to know your purpose. It's like to figure a vocation. It's like not even a
right,
vocation, like figure out a job.
right,
It's not like that's what I'm saying. We've been so
right.
indoctrinated and mixed job and career with
With
purpose.
purpose, 100%.
Yeah. And to your point, you had said earlier, a job is not purpose, which I agree with.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. But I feel because the job part, the people equate that with responsibility and service. And I think that's important aspect of purpose in life. And you said that also. You said helping others out there. There's something about being part out of the in the external society, in the outside world, um, that maybe is tied to purpose. There's a relationship to life. And I understand there are mystics, there are people who are pursue completely solitary existence, and maybe
Yeah.
they add value in that way. But I'm saying maybe more for the typical mainstream kind of majority of us, we don't tend to take that route. And the relationship with life, the activity, the action, there's an action in it. It's not just like passive reflection, thinking in my head, da 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 kind of thing. I really think, and I agree with you that it's an active project. You service others, you put out yourself out there. Unfortunately, I think that is equated to a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Economy has been designed, our educational system has equated all of that work to a job that someone else hands over to you if you're an employee, or
Yeah.
if you're an entrepreneur and lucky enough to succeed and beat the odds and you're still doing your business, then that's also a route. But it seems like it has been reduced to that. And I think it's problematic.
Yeah. It's a lie. It's not supposed to be that way. Like you're right. And I think that's sorry.
How is it supposed to be? How is it supposed to be?
We should be so there's a book I've mentioned this book before and I keep telling Lubna I'll like send it to her and I haven't, so I apologize. But it really made me I was more reading it to understand reincarnation and karma.
Oh,
It's
okay.
sort of, anyone who's going down the spiritual path has heard these terms and they're often used and there's so many different definitions around it. So I just wanted to it came my way and I was like, let me understand reincarnation because the way that I was raised and grew up, like reincarnation is not real. So, and I was always in all of the things that I've questioned, that was always like the last thing for me. I think this is when I really it tipped sort of something for me that was like, okay, yeah, you got like, I'm definitely down this path permanently when I finally was like, yes, reincarnation is real. And if you
Hmm.
doubt it, like, that's your problem, not mine. But I'm also happy to send resources or information or anything like that. Like, it's
Yeah.
hard to not see the validity of this. So
Yeah.
anyway, I came across this lecture that was turned into a book that I really liked, and she mentions, and I'll get like a quote, and I want to read it because she focuses on the soul, right? The purpose
Hmm.
you cannot remove the idea of purpose without considering our soul. And the
Hmm.
soul is a completely other thing that we need to define as well. But I think in the beginning, I had mentioned something that you had also brought up when I said that, why are we here? That's what I said. Why are we here? I
Yeah.
think we all are universally always generally asking ourselves, um why are we here, right? And I think that was a huge theme in my life growing up into this day, right? Like of like, why are we here? And I think you cannot remove the idea of sort of God consciousness or a supreme being that isn't connected to like any of the Abrahamic faiths per se, but just this entity that exists outside of us, the source, whatever you want to call it. And I do think all of this is a path to kind of getting closer to that, like closer to
Mm.
sort of a universal God consciousness. And once you go down that path, you are able, in a sense, I think what you were saying, Lubna, which I like, that flow. The flow comes and then sort of God reveals, or goddess, or however you call them, reveals themselves a little bit more and more that help you figure out your purpose. But ultimately, connecting it to reincarnation, one argues sort of, sorry, I'm all over the place, but I remember, Lubna, you had mentioned about you're increasingly feeling this sort of interest or something that keeps coming to you as the idea of family law or children, right? Some
Yeah,
argue that that could be like past lives things, like your past lives were around either not helping children or you did help children and you're reconnecting to that
yeah.
previous life you potentially might have lived that is interesting and sort of
I
connected
think I
to the
think I
topic.
did not help children and I need to repent now.
So maybe I think that's it. I mean, I think your
I
past
love
lives
the
are like, girl,
villain.
you were a crazy mother or a crazy teacher or a crazy whatever or leader and you didn't care about the
I
kids.
believe it.
And now they're like, you better help the children of today. Like you owe your karmic debt.
I have karmic debt. I
Yeah.
feel it. I'm sorry. I'm
So maybe
sorry.
sometimes that's what the inner voice too is for me or everybody is sometimes it's these past lives kind of telling you if you
Yeah.
believe that. So I think that's interesting. But I want to just read this quote that she says that I thought was really interesting. The soul realizes that as individuals, with our thoughts, feelings, and actions, we are not only responsible for ourselves, rather, that our actual purpose is to act in our thoughts, feelings, and actions, which in such a way that we are beneficial to the community for the great context of all beings. We realize that directly or indirectly, our thoughts, feelings, and actions always affects this context. The individual is not only responsible, this is how those who have undergone near-death experiences describe it, for caring for oneself, being honest with oneself, and so forth. It is also our responsibility to act in that way because inner voice, which until then we had always considered to be private, is in reality also important for all humanity and in fact just as important for ourselves. We recognize now beyond the threshold of death that everything we have done, thought, and felt has resonance, not only for our own imperishable spirit being, but also for the whole world, our fellow humans, the animals, and for Earth. Sorry, and then I'm going to add one more part. It becomes ever clear to the individual soul in this situation that it bears the inner wish to give something to this earth organism of which we are a part, that it wants to wipe off like a dusty covering the old prevailing feeling in earthly life that always wants something from the world. Thus, the question of one's life task comes to the fore. That's kind of what I believe. I just
I
wanted to
believe
put that
in
out
that.
there.
I believe in that, but it freaks me out.
Wait, why does it freak you out?
It freaks me out that thoughts and feelings have resonance to the outside world. Actions, I get it, right? Because the quote that you just read, it says thoughts, feelings, and
Yeah,
actions have that resonance, that
yeah,
impact on the outside world.
yeah,
No, actions, I get it. It is occurring in the outside world. I can see the impact. I can understand the impact. But thoughts and feelings, that freaks me out because that tremendous amount of responsibility on taking care of our inner world. We
yeah,
have to take care of that, the thoughts and the feelings. Otherwise, you can screw up the world around you, including, and I believe in that and I agree with you. And I've seen actually the impact of it, in my life by myself to some extent, but other very close family members where their inner world seemed in turmoil. I can see it. It's so clear because the thoughts and the emotions displayed are in turmoil, and
yeah.
that has a ripple effect on people around them. So the inner
Agreed.
world is not so inner, I guess.
No, it's like,
No,
I mean, we still have a right to our privacy, right? It's not like we can read each other's minds, but there is something to be said about exactly like you're saying. You feel that energy that is sort of sucking the room, right? You think about, when I was a kid or my mom yelled at me how sad I got, right? And it just messed up my day, that feeling, especially given like the modern mother-child dynamic, right? But in general, you feel it when they don't have to say anything,
yeah.
you know? So yeah, it's, and the world is full of frequencies and vibrations and so forth. So we do have to be careful with our thoughts. That's why I'm attempting to be so careful with what media I consume, what, TV shows I like, anything that is even, this is so random and not connected, but connected. But for example, I was watching Netflix yesterday and I came across this Argentinian show, and there was this woman who the character is doing what the character is supposed to do. She was like very neurotic, very unhappy with her life, and I couldn't finish it. I couldn't watch it. Like I was so physically incapable of consuming.
Oh,
I couldn't watch it.
wow.
I was like so sensitive. And honestly, kudos to the actress ultimately, right? That she's able to
She's
make me.
that good.
Yeah, I'm like,
She's
I should
that good.
message them. I'm like, honestly, like whatever, like she's playing the character to a T, but this character is disturbing to me, and I physically cannot be. I physically felt the thoughts and feelings that she was putting out there. And this is a fictional, this is a drama. This is
Mm.
not real. So yeah, it is true on some level.
This brings me to a thought, actually, kind of connected but not connected too.
Yeah, what's
But like, there is content out there that produces the reaction that you got, which is distress, fear, discomfort. The spectrum goes on when it comes to negative emotions. There
Mhm.
is content out there that is designed to evoke negative emotions in us. Horror
Right.
movies, right? I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's a conspiracy theory. There's like some malicious intent necessarily. It's always, dubbed and framed in the context of entertainment. Horror movies. It's just entertainment. It's not going to hurt anyone. But it generates such negative emotions in us.
Hmm.
On a very metaphysical question, I guess, is who benefits from this? Why this is even a thing? And just like interestingly enough, my father, all our lives, he would not watch a horror movie ever.
Oh,
Or
interesting.
something. No, he would never. He's a very calm, very grounded human being. People who know him know exactly how I'm describing him now, that it's really almost like on a spiritual kind of, he tipped over to a spiritual domain somehow. So because he's invested in this world, but not really. You
Yeah.
can see how he's so, anyways, he does not like these movies. I remember when we were like teenagers and watching this nonsense, and he would like pass by, and he looks at us very puzzled, and he's like, "Why, my daughter? Like, why are you watching these things?" Like, he really did not fathom the idea. Why would you put yourself in such distress? Um,
He was
so,
right.
but what, like, why this content is out there? Who benefits from, and I guess connecting it to purpose,
Yeah.
who benefits from our purposelessness?
Because
Us not being in the right track, you not doing what your soul is supposed to be in this. Is there any beneficiary from all of this? Is this sort of by design that we're kind of lost and trying to connect with our soul, and there aren't enough tools or education out there to tell us how to do these things? This is really knowledge on the fringes. You know
yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
for sure. It is. I personally think that also can, with that lack of knowledge, means people are going to go in so many different paths, right? There are people who are going to, because when you enter this life, like if you look at it from a sort of spiritual reincarnation perspective, we come into this life and you don't know your previous lives. You come into it completely ignorant. And certain people can find out what those lives are and different things, but like that's neither here nor there. Some people will choose a dark path and some people will choose the path of light. And sometimes the people that go down a dark path don't necessarily even know that they're going down that path because it is so socially acceptable to
mm,
create horror shows. You are socially rewarded. You are rewarded in this material world. God doesn't give you a sort of like, here you go. Here's a prize for being not doing this type of stuff, not putting out this type of content, not having these types of personalities. Life is ultimately a test for it is, and you come into it either knowing the information or not knowing the information. Because at the end of the day, like you said, this knowledge is still very on the fringes. And I think even so, those people who are doing these things, they don't know. I don't think it's like an active malicious choice. It's choice, it's freedom. And it is, they are choosing to utilize their free will in a way that, and I think they always cover it up by being like, well, it's fake, like a horror show or horror movie. That doesn't mean it doesn't have the thoughts and the feelings that can sort of negatively impact and put people in a not in resonance, essentially. So I just think the problem is we're ignorant. Like we are extremely ignorant, the overwhelming majority, and we don't, and no one is punished for putting out this type of shows, reality TV shows, or people fighting, violence on television, all these types
Mm,
of things we've normalized. Sort of our lower selves is what they call it, like our base level selves to being like, well, it's okay because it's not real. Okay, it's not real, but it's still negatively impacting us. And then connecting it, like you said, back to purpose, people then even get more pushed away from their purpose. I don't think like pushing out this type of information is not purposeful. Sorry. Even if I indulge in it once in a while, and I'm trying not to, I'm trying to do less and less of it. Um,
mm,
but I just think I don't believe in this like conspiracy, like, oh, the Illuminati, the elite. I think we are fighting with people per se, because I believe in choice and free will, right? Like I believe ultimately you have a choice to partake, but you do
mm.
get blinded by so many distractions, by the family you choose to be born into, by
Yeah.
all these different things that if you aren't listening to your inner voice or you're not listening or you don't have the knowledge, right? That's why like knowledge is fundamentally power. That is the biggest wealth you can have, in my opinion, is the knowledge of everything and anything. But ultimately, that's another reason why people are rewarded for not. That's why I feel like they've inverted the definition of purpose, right? Like to saying it's job, making money, being rich, and to me, I have no problem with money or being rich. I just want to like preface all of that. But again, it comes down to like, are you doing something that you love that gives you a lot of money, like singers, I don't think
Mm,
singers, I don't think Michael Jackson or Shakira like or Beyonce are like, I'm going to be rich because I should sing. I think they loved singing and they became ambitious and they built a career that has given them an amazing life, right?
mm,
So I think that's how I've been looking at it, you know, and
mm,
and they can go their path and I'm going to go my path is how I look at it. You want to create this type of content, the news, for example, just acting like every moment of every day we're going to die. Like today is the day. There are plenty of people who live in that world, who in the world who don't watch news, who don't live like that, who are like everything's fine.
mm.
And it makes me think too of like what you were saying. I'm just trying to remember. The thought just came into my mind. It was a good one that you said that I wanted to react to. But yeah, I'm just
Mm.
not into the conspiracy theories as much about like the elite. Like, yes, there is an elite. I don't think they're that organized. And I think ultimately you can reduce your impact by them, but it's not easy because at the end of the
Right.
day, I'm not denying, I will never deny
Yeah.
the E. Like, I'm not like, oh, it's easy. It's okay. I am a single person without any children who doesn't have a family, like, so my approach to it, but there are plenty of people in families who figure it out all the time. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm asking the question because, yeah, I definitely also don't think it's like by malicious design
Yeah.
someone, but it just makes me pause that there's so much negative energy, dissonance,
Yeah.
lack of,
Business.
you
Yeah.
know, descending into our lower base self that is going around, and that's became really normalized in so many ways, like video games that kids
Yeah.
are so involved in and some are addicted to has a lot of violence, and that's an issue, and they connected that to a lot of psychological issues in the future as they became teens and so on, and bullying. And so there's like a ripple effect of engaging with entertainment that is harmless, that evokes those negative emotions and leads to misalignment with a higher self. And
Yeah.
maybe to explain to people who are listening, and you're definitely way more well versed, Hawa, than I am in, I guess, the terminology and understanding of higher self and lower self. But my understanding is definitely that, the ethereal beings that we were before descending to this earth, and many monotheistic religions and non-monotheistic religions and religious establishments and institutions around the world talk about some variation of this story, right? We were somewhere else, we came here in the body, and the body is heavy, is more difficult to be in. The soul is something separate. It's came from a divine and intelligent being. And then, the more you're connected to that divine intelligent being, the higher you are in terms of frequency, lighter. You become a lighter being that you originally were, anyways. And there's a test, there's a process to that. There are practices, different ways. So that's my understanding. I don't know if you
Yeah.
want to add
Yeah.
anything.
No, that's it. Like, yeah, essentially. the higher self, the lower self is always also just like entertaining, like it's all about this world. You are very focused on the material world, living on planet Earth, getting money, men, women, just working, and it's completely disconnected from your spirit, connected to God. And when your higher self is, it is always about connecting to the source, to the path of love and light. Exactly. Like getting back to that point of just like love, compassion. Think about all those like positive attributes we talk about, right? To be a better human being. Love, compassion, kindness, generosity. Those are things that will help you to continue down that path. I'm still stuck down here. Like I'm still very much
Happily
stuck down
stuck
here.
here with
I don't do
you.
drugs, I don't drink, but it's like, meditating, as we talked about, like these practices that help us connect better to praying, like however you want to pray, like doing things that you need to do to sort of get to your higher self, right? Not prioritizing, yeah, not shopping all the time or not, all these types of things, or certainly not having like a certain connection to it, like not being stuck in the ideas of this world or the behaviors of this world or the assumption, like you said, jobs not being a purpose. That is not necessarily true. It can be beyond that, right? Like even for me, right, doing this podcast with you is I love it. I feel like I'm connecting closer to
Same
my
here.
purpose, being able to,
100%. Yeah.
and I think a part of it for me is we get to connect with other people. We get to inspire other people to think about these ideas so we can learn from them too, right? I love the element of, I love the bonus episodes that we do. We want to hear, please, you guys, send your answers to the questions we do with the bonus episode. We want to learn from you. Like maybe we don't know what the hell we're talking about. We have no ego in this. There's something very connecting to people in that way, relating to them that way in more of an intellectual, spiritual way versus it
Right.
being like, a different type of podcast that would not appeal to me or be of any interest. It feels very connected for me on that level. So that's why it feels like it's a part of my purpose, right?
Mm.
Doing stuff on TikTok feels very fun, connecting with people. It's not just the stupid shit that I do, but sometimes when people ask me questions and I respond to them or they respond to me and like some level of what I'm learning, and you said this to me, which was really lovely, but that you're like, how I see you being a professor one day or some sort of teacher. Yeah, I think the things that I'm doing right now feels like I've always thought like, okay, I think teaching in some capacity or another is my
Mm.
path. How that will play out, I don't know, but that seems like a reoccurring theme in my life right now, right? Like
Right.
how do I teach or how do I take the things that I learned? But I have a lot more studying to do. So again, I don't feel necessarily I'm in that position to do it, but it is this again thing that keeps coming up for me.
Well, I have a
Yep.
question for you. Since we're
What's up?
talking, or we talked about the lower self,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's heavy. There's a lot of pain in
Mhm.
this, domain on this planet. There are a lot of emotions. Connecting it back to purpose, do you think that purpose emerges necessarily through pain? So people have to experience some form of loss, failure, rupture, displacement, something as an initiation towards finding a purpose. Do you believe in that statement?
Yeah, I do. I don't think it's
Really?
applicable to all. I don't think it's
Okay.
necessarily because it might not be the case for everybody, certainly. I don't think it's necessarily applicable to me. I think. But for some people, that has certainly been the case, that they have gone through very disheartening, disturbing experiences or circumstances that have led them closer to their purpose. And listen, and that's not an easy thing for me to like say, but ultimately, with pain comes pleasure, happy comes sad. Like there's always opposites,
Mm.
right? Like law of polarity. And for some people, but that pain, if it gives them that path, could lead them to joy. It could lead them to pleasure, right? Like it's not it's one option of many. It is a possibility. I cannot deny the fact that, and I think there are many people, for example, have had near-death experiences, right?
Right.
But prior
Mhm.
to that experience, they went through something very physical, painful. They got hit by a car. Like they almost died in a very catastrophic manner. So that is extremely painful. But I have watched enough NDA clips and interviews that they have said, like, this helped me realize that I needed to get out of this path that I was living. It did help them find their purpose. That is an example. If you believe in NDAs, like, well, not believe, but if these people, which I do believe that they tapped into the source or God, like they're 100%. An
Mhm.
academic institution, like there's so much information on this topic. Those people, many of them are like, they became absolutely clean. Something positive at the very least came from it. Some of
Mm,
them completely changed what they were doing. And they were like, I realized my purpose was XYZ, or I was an atheist and I realized this, or I was a
mm,
teacher and I realized I need to do that, or I was just, a terrible human being to everyone around me. And that experience made me realize that. And now, I'm a counselor to some people, like,
right.
so that's an example I can give as to why I believe that. Do you? It's
I
not an easy belief, but it
Right.
is a
I don't
possibility.
know if it's so the statement is like whether it's necessary, right? To have
Oh,
to do
oh,
that
you were
pain.
asking necessary? I'm sorry. I thought you said,
No, no, yeah,
oh,
that's
oh,
like
I don't think it's necessary. Sorry, I didn't answer your question correctly.
it's fine.
I think, okay, I didn't remember. Yeah, if you're saying, is it necessary to have pain to figure that out? I think it's not necessary, but it is certainly the case for many people. I think pain is not the word I would use then. I would say more like, I guess you did mention like sort of a sacrifice, like there is some sort of thing you have to give up
Mm.
potentially.
Like an initiation of some sort. Like there is a moment where there's rupture in your life where you are almost forced to reorient yourself somewhere else. And you start asking these difficult questions because it takes courage to say what my
Yeah.
purpose is. I think it's way easier to just follow whatever the external image that you've been fed about what your purpose needs to be. And it's often, again, job, profession, title, label, something that is externally validated, is visible.
Hmm.
Uh, that's easier, I think, than stepping back and asking the hard question
Yeah.
of, so for people to do that, there are theories out there that you need to go through the pain, the rupture, some initiation to ask that difficult question. You're saying that's not necessary.
No, no. If we're talking
Okay.
about necessary, like if it's required, I don't know, because that assumes that everyone is conditioned the same way or that they have the same
We're all
experiences.
conditioned,
We
not
all
in the same
conditioned, but
way,
the
but we're all
conditioning is not the
conditioned.
same. Yeah, we're all
Right,
conditioned,
right.
but some people are conditioned to the truth, though. Is that conditioning if they already have the knowledge, if they already know? Is
Mm,
that? I don't know. To answer your
mm.
question, I guess pain can be like a broad thing, right? Is what you're saying. It doesn't have to be like
Right. Yeah,
physically
yeah, yeah.
painful or
Oh,
like,
very broad.
oh, yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know if it's necessary, but think
What
about it. Given
forces
that, oh, sorry.
Okay, here's a question. You are a truth seeker. You've asked so many difficult questions in your life, obviously. Otherwise, you would be now in your corporate office in New York, and you're
Mhm.
not doing that. So you did pivot. There's a loss, there's a sacrifice. We talked about sacrifices before. What prompted you to go on this path that you're on?
Okay. So when I quit my first corporate job, well, I only ever quitted this one back in 2023, May. I didn't even, I didn't even make, it was not a conscious decision at all. My
Mm,
sister, who's a manifestor in human design, I was bitching and moaning to her about how I was sick of living in New York. I wasn't feeling fulfilled at my job in terms of the work that I was doing. One of my close friends at the job left, so I didn't have any friends left. Like I was just complaining a lot to Yasmin. And then I
mm,
vividly remember my sister said to me, "How it just quit." Like she said it. And I
yeah.
and I remember I was just so at peace with that decision. It was like a light bulb. I was very calm. I wasn't usually old me, and I had attempted to quit another job a year or two prior, which I did, but I wasn't settled in that. It was a decision I made for myself. I was super burnt out working at an ad agency. And then I immediately applied for a job. Like I was like, okay, like I did it for a month and I was just like, no, I can't do this. What am I thinking? Whereas when Yasmin had suggested it to me,
Mm.
I was like, yeah, it just came to me. So she was kind of the catalyst that I
Shout
needed,
out to
right?
Yasmin.
Yeah, shout out to Yasmin. Thank you so much. She'll love this. She'll be like, you remember that time like your life changed for the better because of me? I'm like, yes, Yasmin, I do remember.
Keeping
Thank
the
you.
score. I love
Yeah.
that. Sisterhood.
Yeah. So I remember she just mentioned it and I was like, yeah, you're right. And I like calculated everything, everything I
Mm,
needed to figure this out. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. So honestly, and I wouldn't say at that moment I knew what my purpose was. I just knew that I couldn't live the life that I was living and I was making the pain of losing, income, right?
mm,
Steady income, the loss of leaving my
Mm,
friends and family in New York. So for me, that was great. I felt like that was the beginning in a real way, like a real way that I was forced to think about the world in different ways. So that's a good question of like when did I realize what my purpose was? I mean, I've done a lot of spiritual stuff, certain things that kind of pushed me, but I had been doing a
yeah.
lot of work. I've been doing a lot of subconscious reprogramming. I was understanding all these things. And I have to say, the benefit, you're right. Actually, Yasmin was like the one who told me, but it was in that break that I began studying more seriously
Mm,
and really trying to understand the sort of immaterial world, the spiritual world, a world beyond what we see with the visible eyes and with the body that we have right now. And so in that time period, I went and I had one very insane experience, as you are very familiar with, that really pushed me over the edge, right? Like I just couldn't ignore. And it
right.
made me feel so much more settled in who I was.
So maybe
And
that was your moment of rupture.
was it? Maybe, because it feels
Yes.
like it's such a slow thing. That's why I really relate to what you were saying about flow. Like it wasn't like I will say my entire life, I had always been questioning, as you know.
Right.
Like anyone in my
Oh,
life knows how was always like, but why? But why? But why? Why? And no one could fulfill the answer for me, right? So, and that questioning finally led me down the path that I am now, that I'm still on, but in a way that feels more emotionally secure. I don't feel
mm,
as like there's no I'm not struggling in what I am understanding of the world.
mm,
I'm very content, you know? And you have really seen in the last 10 years how I was always
mm,
trying to kind of question things within a certain framework.
mm.
We'll keep it vague and wanting to stick it out, you know? And then also
Yeah.
just in the last 2 years being like, actually, no, that's not the path for me. And so yeah, I feel like it was that, but it was that just existence of my life of just and that maybe Yasmin wasn't, yeah, let's not give any credit to my sister. Let's give full credit to
We
me.
take it
Yeah.
back, Yasmin. We take
I
it
think it
back.
was that experience that was like the gate. I think it was very much the beginning of like, okay.
Of something
Because
different.
once
But
I
yeah,
started
I
reading,
agree
I
with
could,
you.
yeah.
I do think it's an accumulation. Like even when I
Yeah,
have, I don't think it's just like out of the blue, a complete rupture or moment of pain that is like, it's not always like a car accident, near death experience.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't think it's always like that. But I do believe it's a special moment. It could be big or small, special to you, where it speaks to you differently, where you have to pause and you're like, this is not business as usual.
yeah.
And that's when I say a moment of rupture, it could be that. And I also agree with you. I don't know if you said it that way, but I don't think it's an abstract thing. Figuring out purpose is not just like an idea that pops into
No.
head.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of action, a lot of doing, a lot of exploring. You said after your
thoughts,
moment,
feelings, actions. Thoughts.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, after you said after that very special moment that you had spiritually, you studied. Like you didn't it wasn't just like an idea came to your head and that's it. You took action, you studied. There's effort, there is, and I'm realizing in my life that that's when things clarified more, when I took action based on some thoughts. Of course, it has to be oriented action, but it's not just me sitting and just meditating all the time or praying or doing the abstract, the mind work without living it in life and getting feedback on what I'm doing. So I think that helped me. Um, and for me, definitely the changing of geographies that happened in my
Yeah.
life coming to the US 10 years ago. With it, there's a lot of loss and a lot of gain, but the loss puts things into perspective. You are forced as an adult. I came when I was 28. I'm not 16 or 17, where arguably you're more fluid with your values, you're more malleable, you're more flexible. As you age, obviously, you become more rigid in your ways, including the ways of the mind. So at 28, I came to the US, and obviously, I had a lot of things I believed in as necessary in life, in the lifestyle and the way you carry yourself. You derive meaning from relationships, from work. And I had to really reorient myself a lot. A lot of it just out of adaptability and, um, learning. It's a learning process. But with the loss of the old system, the old comforts I had, the family, the friends, the type of job, everything was easy, certain, predictable. It's home.
Yeah.
Um, with that, I think that was a big moment of rupture that put me on a different path where I had to face the difficult questions and build the courage to try to answer them as uncomfortable as they were. Um, and then another idea
But
comes
how
to
do you
mind.
feel? I'm curious about when you said, yeah, like, is it necessary to have pain? Because yeah, you've been through a lot. It was not easy by any stretch of the imagination. Do you do you see the value in that? Like you do. Like I'm going to reward that. That's not a good way of saying it, but I do you explicitly see do you find it to be necessary to have the pain given your own experience? I want to know more like explicitly for you because I see that
For
you
me,
went
I
through
think
these
it
sort of
was
like
necessary.
trials
For
and I
me, it
see
was.
how it benefited you. Like I see ultimately how it led you down a path that I think is remarkable.
Thank you. That's
No
very sweet.
problem. Anytime. I really do.
Thank you.
Um,
I,
so
I
I'm
think in
curious how
my
you feel.
case,
Yeah.
yeah, in my case, it was necessary because I was avoiding the pain. I knew it existed.
Yeah.
I knew the source. I was just like, sweeping it under the rug, trying to be strong, achieving more, doing what's externally expected, required, or maybe I imposed it on myself, all of the above, but avoiding the pain. I was on an active project of avoiding the pain.
Yeah.
um, because the grounding was the foundation was shaky where I came from. So I had to face that eventually when I couldn't sweep under the rug anymore and that type of things. So in my story, yes, I had to face a pain. Um, and I don't know if it was like very conscious decision. I'm like, yeah, now it's the time. No, like I was kind of forced in that direction when things didn't work out anymore because I was doing what I'm used to doing, and that doesn't did not work out anymore. And there was a reason because of the accumulation of the pain festering and manifesting in different ways in my life. So yeah, but I agree with you that it depends on people's stories.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to necessarily be pain. I like better the word or the expression moment of rupture. It
Yeah.
could be grand, it could be small, but there is a moment that means something to every person. And that is the moment where they're like kind of nudged into the direction of asking the difficult question. Otherwise, it's easier, faster to just ignore, avoid, live the life that is kind of more normalized now, which is being disconnected from the soul, not pursuing the purpose in a kind of a conscious, meaningful way.
Yeah.
Um, but on that note, I was thinking of the purpose and whether it needs to be special or unique. Do you think ordinary lives, ordinary things can be purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay,
It's
tell me
not.
more.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we live in a world where it's like the more special whatever, we've decided in this world what constitutes a worthy job that is worth X certain number of dollars versus, what a farmer makes or the people who work on the farms, right? And I think I think I would never want to go back. If we want to move towards this purposeful life, I don't want to go in a world where we're sort of deciding which jobs or which purposes are
Yeah,
not you like
yeah,
just in general. Like
yeah.
I don't want to live in a world where we're deciding, as a society, which purposes are more valuable than others. No. And
100%.
only you know what that path is. Um, because we're all equal at the end of the day. And I think because we live in this hyper capitalist, when I say even capitalist on a more like spiritual level, as people can notice in this episode and many others between me and Lubna, it's like I'm talking about capitalism, particularly with how the world we live in is so materially focused and it's all about money, capital, money, money, and how that's hurting us
Consumption.
spiritually, not just politically or
Yeah,
from our lifestyles, how it's negatively impacting us, but just like living in this world that is so focused on capital is destroying our souls. Not being money focused per se, but just the way that it's all playing out is like it's not helping. We're just even further and further and further. It's like every iteration of every new system the last to 10,000 years is taking us away more and more and more away from ourselves and from the source. So yeah, I don't at all. How about, do you? What do you think?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think it's just like back to the defining purpose, that to clarify from our standpoint, at least, that we don't think it is this like grand, visible, big thing that has to be, save the world. Even when
Oh,
we
yeah.
mentioned about like service and
Yeah.
commitment, and you talked about helping humanity, like it's again, people think of purpose like this grand,
I see what you're
majestic.
saying. Yeah, like it's just like my purpose is to go to Mars. Like, okay, dude, like I'm
Yeah.
not, I mean, maybe it is, but like that's not really what I'm talking about. Like if it is to go to Mars because planet Earth is, we believe objectively, right? Like we have decided, or not decided, if you if say like planet Earth was actually dying, like we believe that the world
Mm,
was coming to an end, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go to Mars to build
mm,
like a colony to help all of us live there and extend the like okay, that sounds really purposeful. But if you're just doing it because you want to show like how cool you are to others, it's more ego. And I think that's another thing about purpose. It's like it's not
ego,
ego. We didn't even mention that. It is a complete removal of like the ego and
the
toxic elements
self.
of the ego and the
Yeah.
domination. Sorry. Like, and so I think that's a good point, Lubna. Like, it is not this big ego trip, like it is not like you have to be so out of your ego. I think you and I both exemplify, like, listen, I'm not, the ego is still a dominant force in all of us as humans on this planet. I'm not attempting to say I don't have ego. But like for you have to have like let go of your job, Lubna, when you did, like as a lawyer at a top law firm in the United States. For me to get rid of just in a small level, that requires a willingness to not care what anyone thinks of you, to take more into account your inner self. No.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm laughing
Like,
because the other people could call it crazy, but I love
yeah.
the positive spin
Oh,
here.
I loved it. When you told me, I'm
Oh,
like, yes.
I know,
Like I
I
was
love
so
that.
happy for you
Yes, you're
because
right.
there is something incredibly beautiful and empowering to be in these prestigious roles and be like, no, because like in the sense that you are going against the pressure of society and what society
Yeah,
expects of us. And you're choosing yourself over society, over the conditioning, over anything. You are, and even in that moment, you were getting closer to your purpose, even if you're still trying to figure that out. I'm not saying you are, but for anyone who does that, like you're getting even closer to your inner truth when you
right.
opt out of any job. And it doesn't have to be like a fancy job. I'm just saying, like, you had a cushy, you were at a top law firm, like, went to Georgetown Law, did all of this. And for you to do that, like, yeah, I immediately was like, so I was like, this woman is
Remember
going to be
that
my life
phone call?
forever. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
just
I
so
remember.
happy for you because for me, it just felt like, yeah, like for me to leave my cushy job, leave New York. Like people die to move to New York. People die like many ways you don't know. Like, and there's my family. The judgment from family, the judgment of of
Sure,
friends,
yeah,
the consequences. There's a lot of to your point. Like there's a lot of risks to give
right.
up these things that
Yeah,
go against what could potentially be your purpose or getting you closer to it. Like again, there are people who give up like million. I always love the guys like on Wall Street who like make their millions and they're like, I'm out. Like I know this is bullshit. I got my money and I'm out. Like there's at least a self-awareness of it, and then they're just like, what, how much more money can I make? What am I doing? I'm away from my family. I'm away
right.
from my friends. I'm away from my purpose. I'm away.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
something
being
really
present.
powerful,
Yeah,
about
that
that.
this is an extremely impactful statement, being away. And the way I think
Yeah.
about it is that the spaces that you are hyper present in makes you invisible and absent in other spaces. So what are you giving
Oh,
up?
I like that.
Because what are you giving
So
up? And that was the
true.
whole trade-off with the law firm thing. Again, the law firm was amazing. I loved the
Yeah.
culture. I loved the people. I absolutely loved it. And this is a very rare statement in the
Yeah.
legal world to say, I love the law firm. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Shout out to the law firm people. But it was a trade-off. I'm gonna be hyper present in that space, but hyper absent in the family life. And at that
Yeah.
point, I was pregnant, and the pregnancy wasn't super easy. And I was commuting between two different cities slash countries, arguably, Washington, D.C. slash Puerto Rico. So all of this to explain, to me, it was a clear, and I know it was a very clear, problem in terms of where I'm present, where am I absent? And is there
Mm.
an imbalance there? And I always say I'm a human being of moderation. I do not live on extremes. And actually, I bought a book about extremes to understand people who live on extremes, to understand my husband, another episode on that. I'm a human being. So when I felt the I'm being pushed to an extreme, I knew I'm losing the purpose or the path or the right orientation for myself.
Mm.
So this is, I guess, a context to people who are listening. And yeah, the same, I guess, in your case, you felt it, right? Like almost physiologically that you are not in your right path when you had the corporate job in New York.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I remember even the tone of your voice, your body language when during that time. I met you actually, we had lunch a couple of times, you coming out of office. I don't know if you remember. And
Oh,
yeah, I don't know if you remember because it was very close to like the
I
Diamond
remember
District.
winter, like you were there winter at one point, but I don't remember
Yeah,
like right after because I was in Mexico for 3 months.
right. But
Yes,
like
it
we
was
were
very
still
eat,
at the
pray,
top.
love, everybody.
Yeah, I guess we were gonna cover an episode on all of this, like all
Yeah,
of this
yeah, yeah.
interesting pivots that we did in our lives. But when I had those lunches with you, you coming out of work, like, so
Mm,
you were a
yes.
different person. Like even your vibe, your energy, I can tell. And to me, that
Really?
was, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Wait,
yeah,
sorry, like when I
absolutely.
was at that job or post job?
No, you were still at your job, but when we used to have just lunch
Oh, I
breaks,
remember that. Like you and yeah, you and Amir would come
yeah,
to like New York and stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. I
So
remember.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying, you, Hawa, coming out of her corporate office fresh, is a very different Hawa now, is a very different Hawa when I see her at night. And I'm sure someone could say, yeah, all of us, right? Like, because you're like in this corporate setting, you have to put a mask, you perform in a certain way, we all do it. Sure. But there's a difference between that and suppressing your natural energy. And I can see
Mhm.
that there was something suppressed.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
was
a
something.
hundred percent, a hundred
Mhm.
percent. Like, and if there's anything I can tell anyone, yes, it might be painful for you, but when you see the light there's a light at the tunnel, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and like you're gonna get hotter. You're gonna get. I got hotter. Like, Lubna can
Yes,
attest
you
to that.
did,
I
girl.
always hot, but
Yes, you did.
hotter. Okay, I got kind. I mean, not that I wasn't any kind. I got more patient. I became more
Yeah.
open-minded, and I would love to hear how you felt when you met. Like, because I think both of us. Because it's interesting. Lubna and I met up in Long Island, as you know, our 40-something subscribers know. But Lubna and I met up in Long Island, and I was
Yeah.
saying how, Lubna, you always say like you're on a quest, Hawa. But when I saw you and you were talking about the spiritual stuff, and I was like, Lubna, I think you're on the quest. Like, I'm not saying we're both on our quest, but we're like, you're
Mhm.
on it. I felt very much like what you have said about me in the past was very much applicable to you, like in a way that I hadn't previously seen before. And you were saying, like, oh, I need to commit to my meditative practice, like all these things that you and I talk about. So it's like something to be said for everyone, not to be less funny and more serious, is that when you go down this path, like there is beauty in it. Like it is not
Oh,
easy. I
100%.
again, I'm
Yes.
making, I have, I mean, I have some money. I'm just saying, like I'm not working. Like I am just living on the edge. You want to talk about extremes? That's me. I go to my parents' house all the time. They're like, "Where? What are you doing?" And I'm like, vibing, chilling. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm kinder. I feel like I'm a better daughter. I'm a better friend. And
Yeah.
you start to realize who should be in your life or who shouldn't, or and you're just prioritizing your needs and your desires. So in that path towards your purpose,
Right.
so many doors. That's why I loved when you said, like, the part about like the circles that are closed and the circles that are open, but like you don't even think, because people get caught up in that, like I'll lose community, I'll lose this, I'll lose that, but you're not even considering the other people that you will
Gain.
meet. The game, yeah,
Yes.
you'll never even consider who are more aligned with you, who will make you feel more comfortable, who will make you feel like, okay, I should be going down this, you know?
Mm.
Because I think to your point about earlier, like there is all this sort of, I do come across these people in these sort of professional spaces and in general where it's like they do talk about this stuff, or they're doing psychedelics or all these types of things, but it's like it's kind of surface level. It's kind of like I can still keep my job, I can still keep this and partake in that. How do you feel about that, Lubna? Like
That's difficult.
it,
That's
and I
difficult.
just
I
think I
couldn't
tried to
do
do
it.
that for a number of years, and it's
Yeah.
not, you're
Didn't work
still
for
in
me.
it, dude. You're still like, I'm not saying quit. I'm not saying like, do what I did or what Lubna did. But I've noticed that even though you were saying earlier that like what the knowledge I have or you have is very still on the fringe, it is becoming like popularized and it's being
Right.
repackaged with different terms or all these different things, right? Like people are really into like Joe Dispenza, who I hear is great. Like I haven't, or all these types of things that are I don't want to say new agey because I think I've heard good things about him. I'm not familiar with his work. So this isn't a critique on him per se. But I can tell like even with psychedelics or like these really like ancient ways of connecting to the source and then people using it in ways that I'm like, I think this is you're using it in the wrong way, or it's still a distraction. That's the thing. Like the distractions are everywhere. Even in spirit, like don't think for 1 second, like for myself and others who are curious about like seeking their path or like something that they're noticing is that like the distractions are not just limited to like the jobs or the schools or anything like that. It's the kind of it's all being like co-opted, is what I'm saying. A lot of shit's just being super co-opted. So I don't know how you feel about that. Like, as I was saying, I don't know if you can do both. I think you kind of,
Yeah, that's definitely difficult. And while we recognize people have financial responsibilities, they have to take care of loved ones,
yeah.
of their families, like there is real world problems that require compromises and sacrifices, right? Like all of that is acknowledged.
Hmm.
Um, in that context, it is difficult to fully, I think, give to both. Like if you're a Wall
Yeah.
Street trader, and then like fully into like, you know, some notions in spirituality where um like being detached of the material world and all, like how can you reconcile both?
Yeah.
Your purpose here is really in severe contradiction to the purpose there. Like there is difficulty there. I cannot say that I know what that problem looks like because I didn't introduce it in my life. I've always known that hyper kind of materialistic routes are not for me,
Yeah.
professionally speaking. So naturally, I didn't go that. But I wonder if there are people out there who are managing to hold such different purposes together and lead a comfortable, grounded life. We're not saying a life that is ping-ponging around and going on just like extreme retreats every couple of months to take psychedelics to cleanse their body and their mind, and they're back at it. And
Yeah. It's just,
seeing these examples of like also back to your point, how spirituality have been packaged for consumption,
yeah.
and all these like ancient traditions and knowledge have been sort of co-opted and put out there because some brilliant business people realize that you can make money out of it. That doesn't take away from how impactful and powerful they are. It's just I join you in urging people to be conscientious and careful and more intentional as they engage with any type of spiritual consumption. Because my understanding and my practice, at least, is that it takes a lot of patience, long time. People study bullshit, sorry, degrees, including my undergrad, with all due
Yeah. I
respect.
mean,
I think it's bullshit. Absolutely. 4 years. It took me 4 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. You think spirituality and your inner world will be fixed in an ayahuasca retreat for like 5 days?
yeah. It's just,
Like, just to put things into perspective, I think people have to be respectful even to their own inner world and
mm,
patient, and it takes time and energy and it's difficult. I struggle with it. A lot of people struggle with it. We're not saying this is easy stuff. It's just that people, I think, have to be realistic about what it means to commit to that route
yeah.
and be compassionate with themselves and the confusion that comes with it and the lack of clarity and the ups and downs. Um, and I guess on that note, moving to more the practical ways, at least now I'm thinking about how I can figure out my purpose, right? It's an active question in my life for my professional space. So I started asking myself questions. And some of the questions that I asked is like, what consistently drains me versus energizes me? I think that's a signal to me.
Yeah.
That's a signal to me that this is maybe I should avoid those spaces, those activities, and focus my attention somewhere else.
Mm,
Another question that was helpful for me is that what people seek me for or seek me out for. So, how am I useful? I guess back to that question, where am I needed? Because
mm,
I think I'm needed in a certain way. But then when I asked that question, I realized, okay, people connect with me for sometimes a different reason. And I'm realizing there's a pattern there. Then the other question is about the flow. Where are the moments where I felt that time is lost? I'm doing my thing. It's still um, energy consuming. I'm not saying it's an easy activity, but the sense of my concept and sense of time dissolves. That's a signal to me that I'm doing something where I'm aligned with. There's a natural alignment.
Mm.
So, do you have any sort of practical ways that you're using, considering where you felt that helped you narrow down more your
Yes.
purpose, your call?
So I agree with you. It's definitely, it goes back to thoughts, feelings, and actions. You have to be really tapped into yourself. So whatever thing you are doing, how does it make you feel? What is going
Mm,
on? And if you're not feeling good, you got to get out. You got to tap out a little bit, right? And so what do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. I did all this inner work. I'm studying all this stuff. I'm in Puerto Rico. I come back. What do? I go right back to my old life. I went right back because I just was like, yeah, I don't, and it wasn't the wrong decision. It was a necessary decision for a lot of different reasons. And I think we talked about it in one other episode we'll post next week in terms of like the stories we tell ourselves. I sort of
right.
mentioned that. So I went back to that job, right? And everyone was nice. Again, very like no complaints. Well, no, it ended on a good note. I'm
Okay.
always like, I want to be like honest, but I'm really trying to not go back to that life. So
Yeah.
anyway, I went on this job. I had like a fancy title. It was, in New York. I'm living, but I'm not in New York again. I'm tired, so I'm living in the Jersey side, and it was great. Like I loved that commute. But that job, I was complaining to people in my life 3 weeks in. 3 weeks in. 3 weeks
Mm,
in, I knew. And it wasn't even just in terms of like the work or say, like, it was just not the right place for me. It
right.
has nothing to do with, because it has nothing to do, it could be, it's the right place right now for the people that are in it. It's really, I'm not attempting to, because I think people always like to be like, it's them. It's not them, it's you. Sorry. Take a little bit of individual response, take a lot of individual responsibility. And when you do that, you actually are very powerful when you do that. So
Right.
anyway, I went in there and it was just like, it was not a good fit from the jump, respectfully. And how was that not? I, didn't have the same communication style as my manager. I think there was just it was just not a good fit. And I felt it. I felt very stupid on the job. So I
Mm,
mentioned this in one of the episodes where and it triggered some childhood wounds that I had, where I was put in special ed classes, and one would look at my resume and my educational background, they'd be like, what? But that
yeah.
was just my truth. That was very true. I was put in special ed classes until middle school. And yeah, I need to
This
write
is
a book,
wild.
and like just and anyway. So I'm just saying I was like really triggered on the job a lot of the time. And I had to communicate those triggers, which I've never done. I usually just quit. I'm like, I'm out. Like, because I firmly believe you can never change an environment. You can only change you. So you gotta go, right? Unless it's in your own environment. So I got laid off, and
Mm.
and the way that I was so like happy. And just like, and I was so grateful to my manager. And I genuinely like, it
Yeah.
was not easy for him to do that. He's a very lovely person. Like if they see this, like I love all of you, you're wonderful people. It just wasn't, I left that world for a reason.
Right.
It didn't,
Yeah.
why did I go back? And I was
Yeah.
so depressed every day, Lubna, like literally every month. I was dreading going into the office. I was waiting for Friday to
Wow.
come. Like I was struggling to articulate myself well during presentations. I was not confident, because my body was screaming. It
This
was
is
like,
not for you.
Hawa, you're doing the work. What are you doing? Because I got caught up. I need to go back. That's what you do. It's like you took your break. You're done with your break, honey. Like now you got to go back to the real world. That's not my path, and I know it isn't.
Yeah.
So that was an example of just like my body was just, I was not sleeping. I mean, I generally don't sleep very well, but it was like I was just bitching and moaning. I know when I'm complaining about what I do to a family member, it's game over. Like I'm already not content. I have not
Yeah.
complained once about this podcast because I love doing it and it's a part of my purpose. But you know what I'm saying, Lubna? Like
Yeah, yeah.
You have to be honest with yourselves. And I was not, I knew it, but I was scared. There, I was like, well, what am I going to do without a job? What am I going to do? That man laid me off. I will thank him till the day I die. That was the kindest thing he ever did to me, you know?
So thanks to
And
that
hiring him
man.
too, and hiring me too, like
Yeah,
it made me realize like I'm not going back to that. I can't. I'm just that chapter
yeah,
is very much in my heart of hearts closed.
yeah.
And I'm grateful because at the end of the day, it goes back to like sometimes also, and we didn't even talk about, well, actually, how is it for you though? How do you
In
feel
what way?
like when you know you're not, when you're going, what are the signs for you?
Yeah, like what I mentioned, like a lot of it is the energy when I
Oh,
feel
yeah. So same for me.
yeah.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah,
the same.
it's pretty much the same. I think um
So
uh
that is my parameter now. Like, how does my body
right.
feel? Listening to my body. And as the 40 plus people that subscribe to our channel no, in addition to Lubna, like I'm very into human design. I think it's a very interesting metaphysical modality. And it's all about listening to our bodies, which honestly, many spiritual practice, this is nothing new. This is just like getting out of your head and feel like really listening to your body. It's
Hmm.
really important. That's what I'm increasingly trying to do more of. If my body is like in pain or my body's just, I'm like feeling weird in my body, I'm not doing it.
So
Like we
maybe
all
we
got to
need
get less in the head. The head, the mind is like screwing us up.
so maybe we need to do an episode about the body and we just
I would
call it
love that.
yeah,
Oh
because
my
I
God, I'm
think
writing that down. The body.
it's more difficult than the kind of expected, honestly. Like what does it even mean to listen to the body? Especially that we're not trained in that way.
It's
Not
hard. I mean,
yeah,
you have
not
to be doing like, you got to be really attentive. I mean, this is where you can use the mind, but you have to be very attentive to it. And
mm,
you also do, I think you have to have some physical practice to
right.
really connect so then you can see. Because it's like, oh, when you know, I do a little bit of strength training, like I'm just lifting dumbbells and stuff like that. And it's like I've done it for 2 years now, or a couple of more years consistently. And now I'm finally seeing like, wow, I'm more flexible. You start to feel like my knees are stronger. Like so, and I think when you have a physical practice, it will be easier to listen to your bodies. Yoga is a big thing for me as well. It could be running, it could
Right.
be anything. It doesn't have kickboxing, like anything you want. But I think
So
it's
for the
time.
listeners, I guess stay tuned on more on the
Yes.
body.
And I do want
Yeah.
to say before we finish off, if the benefit of reincarnation is if you don't figure it out in this life, you can always figure it out in the next. But you don't really want to come back here, from my understanding. So try to really figure out right now.
This is your chance, guys. This is your chance. So
So yeah,
until
as we
next
go
time,
until next time, stay searching and
and
stay
stay
unscripted.
unscripted. Bye, everyone.
Bye everyone. Bye Lubna.
Bye.
And that's a wrap on this week's Unscripted conversation. Don't forget to subscribe to Unscripted with Lubna and Hawa wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. We'll be back with a brand new one next Wednesday. Until then, keep it unfiltered, unapologetic, and unscripted.